Welcome to True Echo, where real courage echoes louder than power, and every unsung hero gets the spotlight they deserve. Today's story isn't just about a boardroom or business. It's about one woman, underestimated for 3 decades, who stood tall and rewrote the rules of an entire empire. You're about to witness how Clara Carter, invisible for years, walked into a lion's den, and roared. At exactly 10:17 a.m. on a Tuesday morning, Clara Carter pushed open the tall glass door to Sterling Corp's executive boardroom. Her hand trembled slightly, but her spine stood unbending. She wore a plain beige blouse, simple slacks, and scuffed black loafers. Nothing about her appearance demanded attention. Yet the moment she crossed the threshold, the air shifted. Conversations halted. A low ripple of amusement snaked around the room like a private joke. "You must be in the wrong room, ma'am," one of the executives drawled, eyes gleaming with the arrogance of a man who believed himself untouchable. His name was Ryan Sterling, and he was used to getting what he wanted. His perfectly tailored suit, expensive watch, and Harvard ring screamed status, but Clara only looked at him with calm detachment. She didn't answer. Instead, she approached the long, gleaming conference table and gently set down a thick manila folder. The laughter began to die. No one moved. No one expected the quiet woman to actually reach the center of the room, much less uninvited. A few exchanged glances. A young VP chuckled nervously, trying to read the mood. "Security's getting lax," he muttered. Then one of the older board members squinted at the folder Clara had placed on the table. The red seals. The official stamps. The legal authenticity marks that every executive at Sterling Corp had been trained to recognize instantly. And just like that, the temperature dropped. Ryan's smirk twitched. "What is this?" "I'm Clara Carter," she said, her voice soft but steady. "I'm here in my full capacity as the majority shareholder of Sterling Corporation." The silence that followed could have shattered glass. Ryan blinked. "Excuse me." She pointed to the documents in front of him. "These are the original share transfer agreements from 1988. I've had controlling interest in this company since the beginning. Your father knew. In fact, he arranged it." "No," his voice cracked, eyes scanning the papers now with dawning horror. "That's not possible. My father, he never mentioned." "He didn't need to," Clara said. "He and I made a promise. I stayed silent so this company could grow without the burden of public prejudice. But that silence ends today." A heavy beat passed. Then another. Finally, Martha Donovan, the longest-serving board member and one of the last people alive who had worked closely with Thomas Sterling, stepped forward. Her hand trembled as she picked up the top page. "I remember this handwriting," she whispered. "This is Thomas's." Clara nodded. "He trusted me to step in if the company ever lost its way. And I believe that moment has come." Ryan barked a bitter laugh, but the sound was hollow. "You think a few old papers give you the right to walk in here, Anne?" "They're not just old papers," Clara cut in, with an edge sharper than steel. "They're notarized, SEC verified, and legally binding. I am the majority owner of Sterling Corporation. And as of today, I'm exercising my right to remove any executive engaging in misconduct, including the current CEO." The room exploded in noise. Voices rose, chairs scraped, papers shuffled. Ryan stood, red in the face. "This is a hostile takeover." "No," Martha interrupted, her voice firm now. "This is a reckoning." As chaos bubbled, Clara stood motionless. She remembered a letter Thomas had once written, tucked away in her old desk drawer. "If I'm ever gone, and the people here lose sight of what we built, you step in. You fix it. Because I trust you more than anyone in this world." She hadn't wanted to take control. For 30 years, she had stayed in the shadows, respecting the pact. But that was before Ryan gutted the heart of the company, before he called loyal employees dead weight, before he funneled money into pet projects while planning mass layoffs. No more. The boardroom's walls, lined with cold glass and power portraits, had always seemed impermeable. Today, Clara had cracked them open. And she wasn't done yet. As the room unraveled, Ryan Sterling clung to his crumbling dominance like a man drowning in his own illusion of control. "Get legal on the phone," he snapped at his assistant, who hesitated by the door, unsure whom to obey now. Ryan's command landed weakly. The room, once his arena, was no longer his. The mood had changed. The power had shifted. Everyone knew it. Clara remained perfectly still, the storm around her failing to move her. One by one, the documents were passed around the boardroom table. Shareholders who had once scoffed at her presence now leaned in with furrowed brows, reading signatures, dates, and official filings. The SEC registration codes matched perfectly. The seals, the notaries, the quiet trail of ownership they had never noticed, it was all real. The oldest executive present leaned back and rubbed his eyes. This changes everything." Ryan's jaw clenched. "It's fabricated. It has to be. A woman like her, she's not." He stopped himself before the next word left his mouth. Clara raised an eyebrow. "Not what? Not supposed to be the one holding your leash?" There it was. The blow landed. No shouting. No threats. Just calm truth, wrapped in decades of humiliation, all finally voiced. "I have waited 30 years for this company to honor the values Thomas and I built it on," Clara continued. "But I won't let you destroy it. Not while I still have breath in my body." Martha Donovan stood. Her expression, once diplomatic, had turned solemn. "Miss Carter's ownership is valid. As a founding member and primary shareholder, she is entitled to call for a vote of confidence on the CEO." Ryan scoffed, but his eyes flicked nervously to the other members. "You're not serious." But they were. Clara had brought more than legal paperwork. She'd brought evidence. She reached into her briefcase and retrieved another folder, slimmer, more lethal. Inside, confidential financial reports, diverted wire transfers, unauthorized consulting fees, and, most damning of all, bank statements showing millions moved into offshore accounts tied to shell corporations with vague names and fake boards. Every transaction bore Ryan's digital signature. She turned on the projector. The first slide hit the screen. A stunned silence settled in. The words, "Sterling Technologies Consulting, Dubai," glowed faintly above a transfer of $2.6 million. Several more followed. All recent. All unaccounted for in company reports. "You embezzled from your own employees," Clara said, her voice steady. "While they struggled to pay their mortgages, you bought yachts, penthouses, and used this company like your personal ATM." "No!" Ryan shouted. "This is taken out of context." But a voice from the corner contradicted him. "I can confirm it." Everyone turned. Jake, a junior accountant, barely 30, stood with trembling hands. "I was asked to falsify the quarterly reports. I tried to push back, but they threatened to fire me. I didn't know what else to do. But it's all true." Ryan's face drained of color. "Jake, shut your damn mouth." Jake looked at Clara, and then to the room. "I'm done being afraid." Ryan lunged forward, but Clara's hand went up calmly. Security, previously stationed silently at the door, stepped forward at a nod from Martha. Ryan froze. The roles had reversed completely. Clara looked around the room and spoke with quiet finality. "This is the vote. Right now. Either you support the continuation of corruption under Ryan Sterling, or you restore integrity to this company and vote for leadership that actually gives a damn about its people." There was no hesitation. One by one, hands rose. Martha. Jake. 3 more directors. Then 2 hesitant VPs. Finally, the majority was clear. Clara had won. Ryan stood frozen, mouth twitching, unable to process his fall. "You don't have the right," he hissed. "Oh, but I do," Clara replied, stepping closer. "I earned it while you were still riding your daddy's coattails through prep school." Security approached Ryan. He didn't resist, but his glare burned. "This isn't over." Clara didn't flinch. "It is for you." As the boardroom emptied and the former king of Sterling Corp walked out in disgrace, Clara remained behind, staring out the window. The war was far from over. She knew Ryan wouldn't give up without a fight. He had media connections, lawyers, and enough money stashed away to fund a small rebellion. But now, Clara Carter had something stronger. The truth. By the end of the day, Clara's name was on every major business headline in the country. Black woman overthrows Sterling Dynasty CEO. Mystery shareholder emerges as Sterling Corp power shift explodes. Clara Carter, the silent partner who shattered a fortune. But the victory was short-lived. That night, Clara returned to her modest apartment, the same one she had lived in for 28 years, and found her inbox bombarded with media requests, interview offers, and, most disturbingly, anonymous threats. "You'll regret this, witch. Sterling doesn't belong to you. This is a warning. Step down or get buried." Each message was more venomous than the last. They weren't just targeting her, they were targeting what she represented, a black woman who had dared to challenge power without permission. Clara leaned back in her chair, exhausted. She should have been celebrating. But she wasn't. Because she understood one thing: power never relinquishes itself quietly. Meanwhile, Ryan Sterling, who had once ruled from his penthouse, was already orchestrating a counterattack from behind the scenes. Within 24 hours, a series of press releases began to circulate accusing Clara of fraud, framing her as an opportunist who had hijacked a company built by generations of real businesspeople. Anonymous sources accused her of being manipulated by outside forces. Some conservative outlets called it a diversity stunt gone wrong. Social media lit up with hashtags like #NotMyCEO, #BringBackSterling, and #BoardroomCoop. Memes mocked Clara's appearance, her clothes, her calm voice. And through it all, Ryan remained unseen, manipulating public sentiment from the shadows. By Thursday, Sterling Corp stock dipped 8%. Investors wavered. A few key suppliers pulled out. And inside the company's glass halls, employees who'd once rallied behind Clara now whispered nervously in elevators and hallways. "Do you think she's for real? She came out of nowhere. I mean, how does someone like that even get 51%? Maybe it was all a setup." The real war had begun, not in the boardroom, but in hearts, headlines, and whispered doubt. Clara knew that if she didn't act fast, everything she had fought for could be undone. That Friday, she convened her first all-hands emergency meeting. The entire headquarters staff, from janitors to engineers to VPs, gathered in the open atrium. She stood alone on the stage. No microphone. No teleprompter. Just truth. "I know you're scared," she began. "I would be too, if I'd been blindsided by the kind of noise you're hearing right now. But let me ask you this." She scanned the room, her voice rising not in volume, but conviction. "When was the last time someone at the top asked you what you needed to do your job better? When was the last time you saw the CEO walk into your department without a camera behind them?" Murmurs of agreement stirred. Eyes met hers. Shoulders shifted forward, just slightly. "I have no interest in flashy PR or revenge. I'm here because this company used to stand for something, and now, I want to bring that back. Not alone. With you." She paused. Then held up a slim envelope. "This," she said, "is the first check from the Sterling Carter Fund. It's going to help single parents here get childcare support. The next one will support vocational training. After that, scholarships for employee kids. This is what leadership should look like. Not private jets. Not bribes. Not threats. Applause began. Soft at first, then swelling into a wave that washed over the room like a tide of defiance. Clara had reclaimed the narrative, not through force, but honesty. Later that evening, she met with her closest allies, Martha, Jake, and a small circle of engineers, accountants, and HR staffers who still believed in what Sterling Corp could become. Together, they built a plan, a roadmap not just to defend Clara's position, but to reform the company from the inside out. Reopen/departments. Launch innovation incubators. Revive neglected R&D, reinstate laid-off employees. It would be risky. Expensive. But the alternative was worse, letting the old regime claw its way back. They began the campaign that weekend. Direct employee messaging. Financial transparency reports. Live Q&As. Open-door office hours. Clara even walked the floors every day, personally visiting each department to listen. And for every lie Ryan spread, Clara countered with clarity. But Ryan wasn't done. On Monday, the attacks escalated. A ransomware breach hit Sterling Corp's internal servers. Payroll systems froze. Invoices were corrupted. Emails vanished. Then came the ransom demand: return control to its rightful hands or watch the company burn. The message was signed by a familiar name, Logan Matthews, Ryan's former executive assistant. The fight had gone nuclear. But Clara didn't flinch. She called an emergency meeting with federal authorities. It was time to bring in the FBI. The FBI arrived at Sterling Corp by noon on Tuesday. Agents in dark jackets and digital forensic teams swarmed the server rooms, mainframes, and data vaults. Logan Matthews had left a trail, and it didn't take long to follow. By nightfall, the evidence was irrefutable: malware developed within Sterling Corp's own system, planted weeks earlier through a backdoor account linked to Logan, and by extension, Ryan. Clara stood at the head of the conference room as the lead agent reviewed the findings. "It's extensive," he said, flipping through the digital forensics file. "But not invisible. Matthews and Sterling coordinated this sabotage. There are emails, internal memos, and even phone recordings. You did the right thing calling us." Ryan's ambition had finally crossed the line into federal crime. The next morning, in a quiet suburban neighborhood, Ryan Sterling was taken into custody. He was charged with embezzlement, corporate sabotage, cybercrime, and obstruction of justice. Logan Matthews was arrested hours later. The news was everywhere. Former CEO Ryan Sterling arrested in cyber sabotage plot. FBI raid at Sterling Corp uncovers massive fraud. Clara Carter, the woman who brought down a corporate empire. For the first time, the tides shifted not just inside the company, but publicly. Clara was no longer a mystery woman or a suspicious shareholder. She had become a symbol of justice, resilience, and silent power stepping into the light. Inside Sterling Corp, employees watched the live coverage in break rooms and conference halls. Some cried. Some cheered. And some simply sat, stunned, as the world realized the woman they'd once dismissed as a quiet administrative visitor was, in fact, the rightful heir to a legacy built on truth. That afternoon, the board reconvened. There was no debate. Clara Carter was unanimously voted in as the official CEO of Sterling Corp. As she stepped into the CEO's office for the first time, she didn't sit behind the desk. Instead, she walked to the window, looking out at the city she had once traversed anonymously. Now, every step forward would be in the open. Her first executive decision: reinstate every employee who had been fired without cause under Ryan's regime. Her second: launch the Sterling Carter Scholarship, for students of color and women in STEM. Her third: a profit-sharing program for staff across every level of the company. And then came the fourth, and the most personal. In the lobby of Sterling Corp, Clara had a small glass display case installed. Inside it was a single worn handbag, hers. The same one she had carried silently for 3 decades. Beside it, engraved in gold. Sterling Corp., founded by Thomas Sterling and Clara Carter, 1988. Employees passed by it every day. And every day, someone would pause, stare, and whisper to a colleague, "That's the bag. That's her legacy." In the months that followed, Clara redefined the company. She dissolved the old power hierarchy. Created internal mentorships. Allowed anyone, from janitors to junior analysts, to submit innovation ideas directly to her. Every Friday, she visited a different department. Lunch with the logistics crew. A chat with customer service. A walk through the labs with the young engineers. She didn't just run the company, she lived inside it, alongside the people who made it breathe. Productivity soared. Resignations plummeted. Applications tripled. Sterling Corp., once feared for its cold ruthlessness, became known for something new, fairness. But Clara didn't do it to prove anything to the world. She did it for herself. And for Thomas. And for the hundreds of ordinary people who, like her, had once been invisible. It was on the anniversary of Ryan Sterling's arrest that Clara Carter stood again before the company, not to address a scandal, but to celebrate survival. A year had passed since she first walked into that boardroom as the invisible shareholder. Now, the headquarters atrium gleamed with energy, light, and renewed pride. Employees from every department gathered, standing shoulder to shoulder. This wasn't just a company anymore. It was a movement. On stage, Clara wore the same modest style she always had, a simple navy blazer, a silk blouse, no jewelry, no extravagance. She gripped the podium and smiled. "1 year ago, I walked into a room where I wasn't welcome," she began. "I didn't have a title. I didn't have media coverage. But I had something more powerful, the truth." The room quieted. "I was underestimated because of my skin color, my gender, my age, and my silence. But today, let me say this clearly to every soul in this room and beyond, your value is not determined by what others expect of you. It's determined by what you do when no one is watching." She turned toward the glass display of her old handbag. "That's the only briefcase I ever carried. And I carried it while building this company from the shadows. I waited 30 years, not for revenge, but for justice. For the chance to make this company what it was always meant to be, a place where every person matters." Applause thundered. Staff wept openly. Others clapped with pride burning in their chests. Rebecca, a former admin assistant, now a data engineer, stood near the front with tears running down her cheeks. Clara had mentored her personally, encouraging her to pursue a career in coding. "She didn't just see me," Rebecca would later say. "She believed in me." That belief had spread across departments. Warehouse workers now joined task forces on operational efficiency. Janitors were included in monthly planning meetings. No suggestion was too small. No contributor too unimportant. At Sterling Corp., the hierarchy had flattened, not through policy, but through presence. Clara's presence. She walked the halls without security or entourage. She rode the elevator with interns. She read every innovation proposal that landed in her inbox. And once a month, she met personally with any employee who requested time, no matter their rank. But not all challenges disappeared. Rebuilding public trust had taken months. Institutional investors were slow to return. Some media outlets still painted Clara's rise as a radical takeover. But her numbers silenced them. Sterling Corp reported the strongest growth in 5 years. Turnover had dropped 60%. Customer satisfaction hit record highs. When asked in an interview what had changed, Clara answered, "We stopped pretending people didn't matter. That's all." Ryan Sterling, meanwhile, was facing a 20-year sentence. In court, he showed no remorse. His lawyers blamed unreasonable diversity politics and public hysteria. But the jury saw through it. When the sentence was announced, Clara didn't celebrate. Instead, she issued a short statement. This isn't about one man falling. It's about a system changing. And that work is far from over. And it wasn't. Clara's reforms continued. She created the Second Look program, a company-wide audit of internal promotion practices, salary disparities, and implicit bias patterns. She published the results, even the uncomfortable ones, for every employee to see. She introduced the Voice Wall, a digital space where any staffer could anonymously share stories, concerns, or innovations, all reviewed by the executive board. But more than any policy, it was her example that stuck. I'm not here to be a star, she said at a leadership retreat. I'm here to be a mirror. To reflect the potential you all carry, and to never let anyone tell you your light doesn't matter. Sterling Corp changed because Clara changed how leadership looked, sounded, and felt. And that's when the world finally caught up. The world couldn't ignore Clara Carter anymore. Business schools began studying her leadership as a case model. Ivy League deans invited her to speak on organizational turnaround. Magazine covers that once dismissed her quietly reached out for features titled, The Quiet Power of Clara Carter, and, How One Woman Rebuilt an Empire. She turned most offers down. When she did speak, it wasn't to brag, it was to challenge. Stop hiring for optics. Start hiring for integrity, she told one room of investors. Diversity isn't a headline. It's a foundation. Meanwhile, at Sterling Corp, her reforms deepened. Under the People First initiative, Clara introduced industry-leading family leave policies, mental health support, and emergency financial aid for employees. She personally funded a hardship relief fund that helped staff during housing crises or medical emergencies. But perhaps the most transformative change was cultural. People weren't afraid to speak anymore. In team meetings, junior staffers debated ideas with directors. Engineers who once feared being ignored now led prototype presentations. The cafeteria buzzed with cross-department conversations. People smiled more. Trusted more. Stayed longer. It was no longer the cold fortress Ryan Sterling had ruled with intimidation. It was a living, breathing company built on dignity. But not everyone was ready to let go of the past. A group of former executives, still loyal to Ryan, filed a civil suit challenging Clara's authority. They accused her of falsifying share documents, coercing board members, and manipulating public sympathy. It was desperate, but it made headlines. Clara didn't panic. She appeared at the press conference in a navy coat, holding the original shareholder ledger from 1988. Behind her stood Martha Donovan, Jake Wilson, and 3 current board members. I've been underestimated before, Clara said. But I've also been underestimated by better men than these. The lawsuit collapsed in 2 weeks. With it, so did the last remnants of the old regime's shadow. Clara's grip on Sterling Corp wasn't just legal anymore, it was moral, cultural, and deeply personal to everyone who worked there. One of her final moves that year was symbolic, but seismic. She ordered that every hallway portrait of past CEOs be removed. In their place, she installed framed photos of employees, from every level, nominated by peers for integrity, creativity, or compassion. It wasn't about erasing the past. It was about redefining who belonged in the frame. At the year's final all-hands meeting, Clara stood before the company once more. This building no longer belongs to the elite, she said. It belongs to the people who stay late to fix problems, who help their coworkers, who believe in something greater than profit. As the room erupted in cheers, Clara looked out, not at her staff, but at her legacy. And she smiled. Because even after all the threats, dismissals, and betrayals, she hadn't just survived. She had built something better. Exactly 1 year and 1 day after Clara Carter laid the truth on the boardroom table, Sterling Corp held the largest celebration in its history. It wasn't a gala filled with champagne and billionaires. It was a family event, food trucks parked outside the headquarters, bouncy castles for kids, music from the IT team's jazz trio, and volunteers from every department wearing matching shirts that read, "We are Sterling." At the heart of the atrium stood a new installation, a golden plaque engraved into white marble. Sterling Corp., founded by Thomas Sterling and Clara Carter, 1988. Below it, inside a crystal case, sat Clara's old handbag. A symbol of 3 decades spent walking quietly through cold hallways. A lifetime of dignity, patience, and purpose folded into leather seams. Clara took the stage as the crowd fell silent. "I never thought I'd speak in this room, not like this," she began, her voice tender but unshaken. "I came into Sterling Corp the way many of you did, through the side door. Unnoticed. Underestimated." She paused. "But this isn't just my story. It's ours. It belongs to the warehouse foreman who stayed late to train new hires. To the receptionist who held the team together during chaos. To the single parent who showed up every day because their child was counting on them. It belongs to everyone who was ever told they weren't enough. You are." Applause rolled through the building like thunder. "And to the ones who doubted me," she continued, "thank you too. You taught me that silence isn't submission, it's strength waiting for the right moment. You reminded me that power doesn't always come with a title. Sometimes, it comes with a battered briefcase and an iron will." She nodded toward the glass case. "I carried that bag every day, not because I had to, but because I knew, one day, someone would ask what it meant. And now you know. It means that every ordinary person has the potential to create extraordinary change." Tears glistened across the audience. Executives stood. Interns clapped until their palms burned. Clara didn't beam with pride, she stood with peace. Not because she'd won. But because justice had. As the music played and the festivities resumed, dozens of employees, security guards, coders, cafeteria staff, approached her. Some simply shook her hand. Others wept. One woman whispered, "I never thought someone like me could lead until I saw you do it." Clara only nodded. "Then lead," she said. "You don't need permission." Sterling Corp had emerged not just intact, but transformed. Productivity was up. Retention was higher than ever. Financials strong. But more than that, the culture was real. Kind. Resilient. The company had traded its obsession with hierarchy for a commitment to humanity. And Clara? She didn't retire. She stayed, not to cling to power, but to ensure the next generation never forgot what real leadership looked like. Because in a world that had taught her to shrink, she chose to expand, to fill the space with dignity, truth, and unshakable presence. And now, every time a new hire passed by the glass case, they'd ask about the old bag. And someone would say, "That's Clara's. She built this place. She carried it for 30 years. And then, one day, she carried all of us." Clara Carter's journey reminds us, silence does not mean surrender, and the invisible can become unstoppable when truth walks in. How many Claras are waiting in your world, unseen, uncelebrated, but ready to rise? If this story moved you, leave a comment below. Share your thoughts. Have you ever been overlooked but kept going anyway? Subscribe to True Echo for more stories where courage meets power, and justice doesn't just knock, it kicks down the door. Share this with someone who needs to remember, your voice matters, even when the world refuses to hear it.